So, All India Institute of Medical Sciences was in the news recently, about 3 weeks back. Any idea what it was in the news for? Any idea? Sorry? Right, and why did that happen? Glitch in the system. Like flights are delayed because of operational reasons, right? But yeah, jokes apart, cybersecurity is extremely, extremely important. When I was at IBM, IBM, obviously had a real army of folks, and these were folks whose only attempt in life was to stay a couple of steps ahead of hackers. But forget about staying ahead of hackers. I think the priority is in terms of being at least on par with hackers, right? Correct. So to discuss this, we have these three wonderful gentlemen here. And I would request each of you to just give a short introduction to yourself, and then we will get into the formal discussion. Start with you, Vishwadeep.
Thank you. Well, it's my privilege to be invited over here as a 16-year-old speaker and entrepreneur. Good afternoon, gentlemen. This is Vishwadeep Kamble. I'm the founder and CEO of HackerHelps Education. Specifically, HackerHelps Education LLP is a specialized startup which provides training into cybersecurity and consulting into cybersecurity. Till now, we have trained over more than 15,000 plus students, more than 1,000 plus intelligence officials, and into services. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishwadeep. Monu?
Hello. Yeah, hi, good afternoon. This is Mono. I am the CEO of E2E Hiring. And to talk about E2E Hiring, it's basically we are building an ecosystem where education, basically colleges, universities, training institute, corporates, where they participate and find a synergy among them. So basically, it's gonna be like a bridge, it's a bridge between the job seekers and corporates. And we also have a lot of other things, but I represent in this session in the capacity of application site security and how I protect my platform.
Okay, excellent. Arjun?
Good afternoon. Myself, Arjun. I represent EDGIO. EDGIO is application security company. We not only specialize in application security, but we focus on user experience, which comprises of fast application and secure data. So the goal over here for EDGIO is securing the application as well as maintaining the speed over the internet.
Thank you. So, he let the cat out of the bag by saying that he's 16 years old. I think when I was 16, I was trying to convince my dad that biology isn't really a good subject to go for. Jokes, in the same vein, I was asking him what is he going to do when he's 25. He's going to have a real problem, right? I don't think there's much left for him to do, but jokes apart. So how many of you are connected to cybersecurity, or you have cybersecurity as an agenda point? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and just to make sure that we are all on the same page, what exactly is cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity for business, if we'll talk about that, then it is not only about providing the data security, or we can say like providing security to the digital assets. It's also thing about most of the company, like I've been working with more than 150 plus startups in the recent weeks. What I found is like most of the startups or the well-established companies too, they treat cybersecurity as an business, or we can say like they treat cybersecurity as an IT issue. It's not an IT issue. It is a business imperative. More than business imperative, it is an personal imperative. To make this session more, or we can say like more interested, I'm gonna give you a challenge, guys. Okay? Just give me 2 minutes for that.
Sure.
Yeah. So you all can just have Google my name on LinkedIn. It's Vishwadeep Kamble. You'll find my second profile. And anonymously, I'll tell you to drop comments over there. It's time somewhere around. Can you please get me the time?
Yeah, 125. Probably we will not be able to do a real-time exercise on this because of the time constraint that we have.
So it's around 125. Just within 1 hour, we'll have a meet at 225, and I'll for sure track the real person who make the comments anonymously to you. So you can just try about that. Coming to your question about cybersecurity. like even cybersecurity or supply chain risk management for the e-commerce brands, that is most important. Monitoring risk and establishing a well supply chain management. It also plays a very important role as the supplying of the goods, the services, and the resellers as used to do with that. Cybersecurity plays a very important role.
So cybersecurity is essentially across all functions of an enterprise.
Yeah,
right?
all functions.
Monu?
Yeah, I mean, it includes everything that is accessible through internet and as he rightly said, we I come from application side, so security is kind of one of the last thing that we perform once we build features and application. But then that's not how it should be treated. It is one of the integral part of it. But yes, so it includes everything because organization, even including the organization, it comes under the security.
And Arjun, coming to you, do I necessarily have to be connected to the net to be a victim of a cyber threat, or even if I'm not connected and I'm working offline, right? Am I still open and susceptible to a cyber threat?
The short and sweet answer to that is yes, because eventually at some point you are going to be connected to internet. So gone are the days wherein we can work in isolation. At some point, either of my device will be connected to internet. And all that attacker needs is that just one single window where they can sneak in and take control of your identity or your access. So reflecting on your question on what cybersecurity is, if I have to answer that in one single line, cybersecurity to business is same as what immune system is to our body and what a defense is for the country. It helps organization maintain user experience, protect their brand, as well as protect their revenue.
Okay. And when you talk of cybersecurity, is it only data? Are you talking only of data, or are there other elements to it?
It's not about data. It's about everything which will cover in the business.
Like what?
For example, if we are having Amazon with us, so it's about protecting the user's privacy that does not get leaked. So what happens into business is like close relationships, collaborations, partnerships are often required between two businesses. So suppose if an attacker want to attack into a particular business and because of a high security is not able to attack, okay, so he can just see the collaborated business. If for sure something has been shared between two of the businesses, that can be NDAs, user data privacies, credentials and all. So the attacker can hack into the business which is being least cybersecurity provided. Data, information, credentials, everything will come over cybersecurity.
Okay, so essentially anything that compromises the identity of an organization in whatever form it is, comes under the aspect of cybersecurity.
Yeah,
it could also mean the parking lot number of where I park my car. If I'm the CEO of a company, probably that could also
definitely
come under the aspect of cybersecurity. I know I'm stretching it a little too far, but
you're right.
I'm glad. I'm scared also, because which essentially means that anything and everything we do in a connected world today is open to being susceptible to some crazy mind somewhere.
No, it's not just that. In fact, you are sitting at home and not doing anything for your office, but then you are still in some surveillance, and that's how. Otherwise, any big organization that you see and all big cases that you have seen now, I don't want to name it, but then these are all been implemented are big giants, software development companies. But the hackers get through, and
I'll come to that later, because everyone seems to be aware of cybersecurity. Everyone seems to be aware of the dangers. Everyone seems to be aware of the ramifications. But somehow not everyone is proactive in taking the right steps. So is it because of that fantastic notion that we have that it can only happen to my neighbor and not to me? Is it that, or is it some kind of an overconfidence in the systems that we have? I'll come to that later. But what I want to ask you, Arjun, is it only about technology? I know you represent a technology company which provides services in this area, wherein someone tells you that someone's immune system is defective, and you get in and say as to how do you make it much more fortified. But is it only about technology?
Technology is one of the aspects of it. I would say behavior is the center for cybersecurity. What I mean by that is, what you have to first understand is what exactly are we protecting over here. Are we protecting the workflows? Are we protecting the data? Or are we protecting the identity, or all of it? So today, everything is hyper-connected. Going back to the example that you gave, if someone knows my parking slot number, they can figure out my car, they can figure out who owns the car, and then they can figure out the phone number. All that they have to do is compromise. That's
another,
it.
Another solid argument against owning a device like a car, right? Massively depreciated asset. Okay, jokes apart. Now, this is where I come to a scenario. And this is a real life scenario because there is this enterprise of about 120 crores which reached out to me with a peculiar, with actually a query. And that query stems not from the fact that he was worried about data, but that query stemmed from the fact that he wanted to reach out to his potential clients in the US and Europe. And hence he knew that the scrutiny is going to be much more larger and much more stringent. And hence he asked me a simple question. So he's got a sales team of about 10 or 12. He's into this business of solar panels and a lot of stuff that goes into solar panels. A lot of information gets shared by the sales teams and the pre-sales teams on WhatsApp. Right? Now, and God only knows what are the channels, right? My phone doesn't work, I pick up my wife's phone or my son's phone and message it from there. So data, emails, all this come under this larger aspect of cybersecurity?
Yeah, it comes. I do have one very interesting scenario to add over this, and it's a real life incident. Just 5 days ago, I was having a conversation with my friend on Facebook. So we were talking, I was talking about buying a new laptop. So we were just having that which laptop should I buy and what should be the configurations and all. So when I just came to my homepage of Facebook, after just few minutes or half an hour, I was able to see that it's showing me ads for laptop.
But will that not go away in a cookieless world? I mean, we understand that's because of cookies that's there, but
yeah.
Tomorrow, I mean, Chrome has already said it's getting out of cookies. Edge as well as Firefox have promised that the next year, 2023, they will get out of the cookies. But that's more to do with the cookies. I understand it's still an issue,
Yeah.
and I understand where you're coming from, saying that anything that and everything that you do,
That has been tracked.
that's been tracked. So there was this dangerous experiment of a phone being off and still the location being known. Right? So that's the extent to which we are vulnerable, and that I guess we've got to live with it. But coming back to this, it's only fair, like, if there are D2C founders, or if there are new brands, or if there are D2C founders, I don't want to be spending my time trying to figure out how do I make my email more secure, right? Or how do I make my data more secure? I'm more worried about getting to the market and making sure my business thrives. So at the same time, there comes a time when I will realize that, man, I should have done something better about this earlier. So what is any one of you can take this. What is your 2 to 3 steps for brands who are building, or people who are building brands, in terms of things that they need to take into account from a data transfer, data sharing perspective, from an email perspective? Just some basic brass tacks. Don't scare them with some heavy-duty solutions, but basic behavioral tactics.
So I think D2C or, both B2B and B2C, more likely it is B2C. There are examples. A big brand just vanished. There is some food delivery app came couple of years back. I don't want to name it, but then they compromised all the data, right? So they are out.
Monu, don't scare us. We are already scared.
Yes.
Agreed. The point is, what can someone do to not disappear? Right?
Exactly. So they have to be, so for E2E hiring, for example, any core data that it's never exposed to internet. So it has to be part of your design when you build your application as one of your core module, and you cannot delay it, because once compromised, it is compromised, right? It's very difficult to. So when you, probably from the application development perspective, have this security component in parallel with any of your top priority business or MVP items. That's number one that we can go about. Plus, get some auditing, independent certification to help them, at least they are secure, secured to a larger extent.
So, but before you get to the certifications, I take your point on that, and that's perfectly valid. But before we get to the certification, Arjun, is there any information security protocol or some kind of a framework or a roadmap that brands can follow and kind of at least be level 1, level 2 secure? They can't be obviously completely secure. But
yeah, so as I said, there are certification, but nobody guarantees that you are foolproof. So certification is one part, process is one part. What I'm trying to say is you have to make your application secured by making sure that it is part of your design and development itself. And there are standard practices like VAPT, pen testing, you know.
I agree. Just hold on your point to that because we'll come to that in detail. But yeah, VAPT, pen testing, I think you do a lot of pen testing. Pen testing is a little embarrassing for people who believe they've built the most, Fort Knox kind of a solution, because then they realize, you've blown too many holes into it. But that's the solution. That's the, let's say, the solution part of it, or the software development part of it.
No, that's not solution. That's part of your design. So you have a brand, you want to, any D2C brand, you want to sell something on your marketplace. That's your business.
I'm taking
so having security should be your business at the
I agree. That's the security of the business. I'm taking a step backwards. At an enterprise level, if I have a team of 10 people, how do I make sure that data, A, storage, B, sharing of data, how do I make sure that I have some principles ingrained right from day one, so that I don't have to revisit it later when I grow to a certain size?
Exactly. I think that question you already put it before. So the security starts with enterprise, right? So which is organization level, right? And you have to define your process and policies and process. And then comes to the application side. So application again, right? From DNS to network to data to application to all of that, and then there are compliances. I think in India, GDPR is not enforced, but then following that is still good, right? How do you actually make sure? We don't have a lot of, I think, certain is what is the agency that take care of. But I think employing GDPR or even CCPA is still valid. I do it myself, although it is not compliant to be followed in India, but then we should still go ahead with that.
Absolutely.
I'd like to add a couple of pointers over here. So any organization, they have to keep threat actors away.
Sorry?
Threat actors, attackers, they have to keep them at bay. So first thing that they have to do is, of course, put security as an enforcement right at the inception when the application is developed. But also these days there is buzzword in security called zero trust. That means whatever is incoming, do not trust it, validate it. So that way you can ensure that anyone or any bot who is or accessing the infrastructure is a valid candidate and not someone outsider.
So you're also stating that when I go in for software, productivity software, for example, I'd better go in for some licensed version and not some downloaded version near church, which I get from ChurchGate or something like that.
Exactly.
Right?
So a good point, because these days what happens is you get a lot of cracked versions available online. So I can probably put a cracked version of Windows Office, but at the same time I can sneak in some bots into that. So whatever activity you are doing, that will be available to me. Not only that, I can use your machine as a target to launch an attack. So it's always advised to get a licensed version.
No, absolutely, and I completely endorse that, because in my career with Microsoft and then after with IBM, I realized that while going in for unlicensed software saves you a little bit of money earlier on, but then you open yourself up in multiple ways, and the number of options that an attacker has or a cyber stalker has is phenomenal. You won't even know about it, right? So I think the first thing that
I think to add there, right, it's very important point that when I started my own organization and start from 1 to now 150, I actually I skipped that part for a couple of months, and when I got an attack, and that's when I changed all this firewall and and having a lot of routing gateways and all of it to mitigate it. I think one simple suggestion that I have gone through is, yes, have your infrastructure in place with zero trust and other best practices.
Yeah, understand. How many times you're doing something very important, you're crunching numbers for your board to kind of give you that 20% hike in terms of funding, and then there's this pop-up which comes saying that we kind of sense a threat. Would you want to continue or whatever? And what we do is we completely close the window, right? We kind of ignore it. But I think those are fundamentals at a personal workstation level and then at an enterprise server level as well. Now, the cybersecurity obviously comes with a lot of planning. So a lot of planning needs to be done. So how does one go about creating that roadmap? Because this is not about a one-time injection or an injection every 6 months, right? It's about being part of your daily DNA. So how does one do it? I
See-
mean, is there any resource that we can reach out to wherein I can look at that and say, okay, now these are the steps that I need to follow?
For sure, there are many resources which are available on network, but I would like to mention few of the things for the enterprises which you can just it's important for to go through. Cybersecurity should be an integral part of every business. Coming to the steps which one should follow. First of all, start using VPN, virtual private network. So what will happen using VPN is like, for example, whenever we see that so we are getting tracked, where our location is getting tracked. So that is getting tracked by the IP address. Today we both are communicating in English language. The same, our devices used to get communicated with the IP addresses and all. When you will use an VPN, your IP address will get changed each time. So like no one, it will be hard for the people to track you. Another one is like have multi-factor authentication. So whenever a user will log in into your database or what, he has to go through one authentication, then another, then another. And it also plays a very important role over there.
Okay, and perhaps the penultimate point out here is in terms of when you talk of cybersecurity, when you talk about data protection and all, it's not just limited to your organization. It's limited. It also extends to your suppliers, your partners
Definitely,
as well, right?
of course. Yeah, right.
Okay? So how do you ensure that? How do you tell a partner saying that, hey, if you're not secure, if you're not good enough from my security perspective, I don't want to do business with you?
Okay, so these days, as I said, there are no applications working in silos. An e-commerce brand could be working with their suppliers, and all this communication is facilitated through APIs. So it's on organization that they need to enforce the security. They need to ensure that all their vendors are secured, they are adhering to so-called specifications or compliances, and only then integrate those APIs inside of their applications. And in future, the API traffic is only going to increase from here. The bots are going to increase from here. So it's not only necessary, but a must for organizations to enforce these policies on their suppliers for security.
Right, and this is a continuous process, right? And this is not something that you do on a Monday and then forget for the rest of the week. Now coming to the final question, assuming, despite all that we've done, you are target of a security attack or a cybersecurity attack, so what should the brands do?
There is this concept of 0 day. 0 day means it's a brand new attack that anyone has seen, and there are no signatures, there are no mitigation steps. So that's why there is a concept in security called negative security and positive security. Positive security is when you are going by behavior. You are assessing if this particular request is following to a normal behavior that a request should be seen on an application. So even though if the 0 day attacks, the first thing is identify the pattern and then get into mitigation. So there is this concept called UDA, wherein what you do is you orient, you decide, and then you act. With 0 days, you have to do the same thing. First, orient your team, observe what is happening, decide on the mitigation steps, decide what are the consequences of these mitigations, and then act on it. And that's where edge security solutions will come handy, because this visibility required to see the vector, attack vector, and to act on it will be provided by the vendor itself.
So I think there are two types. One is if it is an e-commerce where or you are in a B2B or B2C space, and when you realize you got an attack and your data has been compromised, so I'm assuming that your data backup, your application backup are happening. I think the shut it down is the first thing, and then probably replicate it with the backup data first. And
That's
the
that's
most
the first step.
important, yes,
That's the first step.
yes,
Yes.
the most important part here is that how do you communicate to the user? I think you have to be better honest and transparent there, because one mistake happened by compromising the data, but bigger mistake would happen by not telling, because they don't even aware that their data and personal data are being compromised. So I think the second step is immediately send out a notification and then see how best you could do to mitigate it for future.
I think that's perfectly valid, and that's very nicely put, Monu. So and post that, what do we do? How do we make sure that the impact is minimal and it doesn't happen again?
So see, RCA is most important, root cause analysis. So we have to get to the root cause analysis and see what went wrong. And the security loopholes can be anywhere. And as I said, from application to network, I mean, big banking payment gateway being compromised because of man in the middle, right? So
Sure.
it can happen anywhere, right? From DNS, and even people are buying a DNS. There is a checkbox. Do you want to secure your DNS by masking your details and all of it? They charge 500 rupees more. But then, yeah, let's save that 500 by, So you have to be. Every steps are so critical and important.
Yes. Vishwadeep, your last words.
Yeah.
Last words on
For
what
sure.
should one do if one is subject to an attack?
But see, first of all, like I just agree with the second thing which you said. The users should send with the notification about that. So suppose if a company XYZ is having an attack, so the company should send the notification to all those users saying that please change with your credentials which you entered over there, so that the data will be safe. And users will have multiple factor authentications over there, so that they'll update themselves over and over. Apart from that, I have some things to add over the general. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has announced that as we are having Indian Air Force, Indian Army and all, so they are introducing cybersecurity as an integral part of the nation, of the country. And by the end of the year 2023, the next year, we'll be having a new cybersecurity force into India.
And is there a central helpline?
Yeah, there will be a
single number?
central helpline, there will be the headquarters, and everywhere we can work on.
So I think that's about what we have time for, because we are infringing on your lunch in any which ways. But I think this was an important discussion to have. I have a very radical way to manage the cyber attack. Hire the guy. You might have to pay through your nose for him, but I guess you can hire the guy. Right? But that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. If there are any questions, we could probably just take one question maybe right now, and the rest anyways, these gentlemen are available. No questions? Fantastic. So thank you so much once again. Arjun, Monu, and Vishwadeep, thank you so much.